You know that one person everyone instinctively looks for when everything goes wrong? The pipe bursts, the car won't start, the file corrupts 5 minutes before the deadline. Someone in the room is spiraling and pulling everyone down with them. And while everyone else is panicking, talking over each other, or just staring at the problem like it's already decided, this person does something unsettling. They go quiet. Not the I'm in shock kind of quiet. The I'm already inside the problem kind of quiet. Like they can see the hidden switch you can't even find. Like they've lived through this exact disaster before, even when they haven't. They don't ask, what do we do? They just start doing it. And you're standing there wondering what's wrong with you, why your first instinct was to freeze, or panic, or find a reason to leave the room. So what actually separates these people from everyone else? It's not experience, not even close. And once you really understand it, you can't stop seeing it everywhere. Let's go back to something psychologist Albert Bandura was pointing at in the late 1970s. A concept called self-efficacy. Strip away all the academic language, and it's just this. Your belief that you can handle what's right in front of you. Not general optimism. Not I'm a confident person. Something much more specific than that. It's that quiet feeling of I've handled things before, and this thing, whatever it is handleable. Bandura found that this belief alone changes almost everything about how a person responds under pressure, how long they keep going before they quit, how much they put in when it gets genuinely hard, whether they fold or lean in. So where does that belief actually come from? That's where it gets personal. Think about what happens the very first time a kid tries to fix something, actually tries, and it works. Something small, doesn't matter. They wiggle a wire and the lamp comes back on. They restart the computer and it recovers. They press down on a cut and the bleeding slows. That moment does something to them that has nothing to do with the lamp or the computer or the cut. It rewires the way they see themselves in relation to problems. Suddenly, the world isn't just a series of things happening to them. It's something they can reach into and actually change. And every time something breaks after that, their nervous system doesn't go into shutdown. It goes into this almost mild curiosity. Oh, this is a puzzle. I've solved puzzles before. Bandura called these mastery experiences, and research consistently puts them at the top. The single most powerful source of self-efficacy there is. Not being told you're capable, not watching someone else do it, actually doing it yourself. That's the part that sticks. It's a learned relationship with uncertainty. Because for a lot of people, uncertainty feels like danger. But for a fixer, uncertainty is just a starting point. There's another framework worth understanding here. Julian Rotter spent years studying something he called locus of control. The degree to which a person believes their own actions determine what happens next, rather than luck or fate or other people. And those who sit firmly on the internal end of that scale don't just fix things better. They persist longer. They handle stress without wrecking their lives over it. They're less likely to spiral. Because believing your effort actually matters is one of the most protective things a human mind can carry. But most of these people weren't born this way. It started from specific moments, usually in childhood, where someone either handed them agency or left them no choice but to find it themselves. Sometimes it was a parent who said, I'm not going to tell you the answer. I'm going to help you figure it out. And sometimes it was a parent who wasn't there at all. So the kid figured it out alone. Both roads lead to the same place. A mind that's learned, action changes outcomes. Now here's where it gets interesting. Because from the outside, it looks like confidence, but it's actually something else entirely. When a fixer walks into a broken situation, they're not certain it's going to work out. They're not carrying some guarantee. They feel the same uncertainty you feel. What's different is that uncertainty doesn't feel like a verdict to them. It feels like a starting point. There's a name for this in psychology: tolerance of ambiguity. The ability to sit inside a situation where you don't yet have the answer and not fall apart while you figure it out. People who struggle with ambiguity need resolution, and they need it now. They need to know it's going to be okay before they've done anything to make it okay. And when that reassurance doesn't come, the anxiety moves in. They freeze. They step back. They hand it off to whoever looks the calmest. But the fixer in your life? Somewhere along the way, they learn to be okay in that uncomfortable in-between. They can stand in the "I don't know yet" without collapsing. I want to pause here and be honest about something, because this would be doing you a disservice if I didn't say it. Some people who know how to fix everything, emotionally, practically, for everyone around them, are not doing it from a place of strength. Some of them learned to fix things because that's how they earned their place. The approval lived in the solution. Standing there helpless was, at some point in their life, genuinely dangerous. So their nervous system made a decision: I will never be helpless again. And that's a coping mechanism wearing a superpower's costume. You can usually tell who this is, because if you ask them to let someone else handle something, they physically cannot relax. They hover. They micromanage. They offer suggestions nobody asked for. They need it to be fixable, not just for your sake, because an unfixed thing somewhere nearby feels like an unfixed thing inside them. But then there's the other kind, and this is the one worth really talking about. The person who fixes things out of genuine curiosity, because broken things actually fascinate them. The gap between not working and working is one of the most interesting places in the world to them. These people will tear apart something they already fixed just to understand it better. They'll ask questions that serve no practical purpose. They'll explain what went wrong with a level of detail nobody asked for, and they'll do it looking delighted, like they just discovered something beautiful. These are the people who fell in love with competence itself, not the outcome, the process, the figuring out. And spending real time around people like that is one of the most recalibrating things you can do. Because what they model, without even trying, is that not knowing how to do something is just a temporary condition. Broken is not permanent. You can put your hands on a problem and actually move it. Now, maybe you're sitting here realizing you're one of these people, and you've never really stopped to understand why. Or maybe you're realizing you're not. And the idea of being this way feels genuinely foreign. If it's the second one, I want to say something directly. The reason you hand off your broken things isn't a character flaw. It's a history, a set of experiences that taught you problems are things that happen to you, rather than the other way around. And that's not permanent. Bandura's entire argument is that self-efficacy builds through experience. Small wins, tiny moments of "I tried and it worked." Not heroic fixes. Just, you tightened the screw, you made the call, you didn't wait for someone to come save you. That's where it starts. But understanding why you're wired this way is only half of it. The harder part is doing something with that understanding, because awareness without structure has a way of just becoming more material for your brain to loop over. You see the pattern, you name it, and then you think about it constantly, and nothing actually moves. So here's the only question that matters after this. What's one thing in your life that's slightly broken, that you've been walking past? Not the biggest thing, not the scariest thing, just one small, fixable thing. Pick it, touch it, try. Because the moment you watch yourself change reality, even a little, something rewires. And once that happens, you stop seeing problems as verdicts. You start seeing them as starting points. That's the psychology of people who know how to fix everything. Comment one small thing you're fixing this week, not the biggest, just the one you've been avoiding. And if someone you know is the fixer, send this to them and tell them you finally get it.